Um, the last 45 years in particular, America has made some significant shifts, and I can talk more about those because they do impact us tremendously. But the stage had been set for that prior to. And so just from like a 40,000 foot view, we made bodies and spirituality separate from each other and we instituted that inside the brand new Christian religion in the 4th century when Constantine, who was the emperor, became a Christian and appointed the men who were fighting over who could be more spiritual, not around an issue that had anything to do with Jesus' ministry or anything about that. It was about what man could deny his body the most, body's natural desires. That person was the most spiritual. And so they were all fighting around that. And when they couldn't do it well, do you know what they did? Because we're still doing it today. They blamed the women. How could you?
Right.
You were the
I was
temptress.
just going to say, sounds like the root of some great misogyny to come.
Yeah, well, and the culture was already very patriarchal. I mean, it had come from Roman Jewish reign, which was, again, very patriarchal. So the steps were set for some things to build upon what were already going to be really faulty steps for a successful culture.
Can I quickly ask you why? Because if you look at the pagan societies and what even Nietzsche called the dichotomy between the Dionysian and the Apollonian, right? They knew how to party. And at the same time, there was a more cognitive, rational side to things. How did Western civilization, especially in Europe, go so far off the rails when it came to being in touch with one's body and accepting our instinctive needs in a way that didn't short circuit so much of what
and again, what I describe about the foundation when Christianity became an empire religion, right? That things that were happening socioculturally at that time shaped how that got formed. Now, not every line of even Christianity follows that particular one. You've got the Hellenic line that's more your Greek Orthodox, and that kind of went through a different area, and there they held on to mysteries, which of course most of them had pagan roots, right?
Yes,
but they held on to there's a mystery. Yeah,
right.
There's a thing we don't know.
Right.
And so you'll see in some of those lines a struggle still around the body and sexuality, but they've got this tiny little back door that allows them to go, well, but we might not know everything. We on the Western side of things, went into Rome and Europe and down into the US or over to the US, was very much about hierarchy, patriarchy. Men were on top, maybe God's above that, and then women and children and everything else. And then the separation of body and soul, right? So we've made now the soul more important, more elevated. Anything having to do with the body is more base. Well, and then we have, 3rd, 4th, 5th century church leaders who are talking about how awful women are and how they're the reason for all sin and they're weak and they're blah, blah, all of that. So those things became foundational to how we think. But we have to ask ourselves, who does it serve when patriarchy's in charge?
Well, the men.
Yeah. And if we make what men want what's most important, and a woman has to serve him, give him what he wants, that is a kind of power and control structure. Yeah. Right.
Sure.
I mean, it has its flaws for sure, but it's a kind of structure.
Gender-based hierarchy with other
gender-based hierarchy
as well. Yeah.
But we have to ask ourselves, how does that affect an interpersonal relationship? How are they getting along? How well do either one of them feel seen, known, loved, and accepted? Or another way to put that, free free to express who they are with the other. And that would include sexually. I first have to be safe enough to say, who am I? What do I like? What makes me particular in the way I like to share connection and the way I like to share pleasure, which is what sexuality kind of is. Then I want to be with somebody who also has asked those questions and given themselves permission to live a life that is full, has an ample amount of connection and pleasure in it. And it has more than one way to achieve it. It has ways together and a ways apart. And it's an open conversation because we don't want mediocre touch in our family.